1955, humanity may have survived a devastating Third World War, but liberty did not. Now there is only the oppressive Commonwealth and the few independent factions it has yet to assimilate. Because no army can stand against it, resistance is waged with elite agents. These operatives are so dangerous to the world government that it has initiated a program to create its own counter-agents.
Global Agenda is an MMO third-person shooter developed by High-Res Studios. It is set in a dystopian sci-fi setting, although you never really get to witness this dystopian part, as you are essentially an outcast, and this is where the story comes in. You wake up in a big glass tank where you're being re-educated, and are rescued by some agents who unfortunately get killed off way before you get to thank them. A disembodied voice helps you escape, and before you know it, you're living in Dome City, fighting the Commonwealth being the evil government that wanted to turn you into a mindless super soldier. The game starts off with a very impressive tutorial sequence that feels like it could have been the first level in a single-player shooter, full with voice acting and cutscenes. Unfortunately, after the tutorial is over, the story seems to take a back seat, and there's pretty much no emphasis on it whatsoever anymore.
You've skipped your re-education, been exposed to an uncontrolled environment, so there's no going back, I'm afraid. You've squandered your chance to serve the Commonwealth, your chance to replace.
Once in Dome City, you can either start missions or do the newly added quest line to leave the dome. Leaving the dome is much like your traditional MMO in that you have a nice big open area littered with respawning NPCs and people with exclamation marks on their heads indicating they want you to kill 10 nasties. The quests in the open zone, called Sonoran Desert by the way, give you some backstory about the surrounding area and the tribes that live there, but it doesn't really talk about the Commonwealth story itself. The main meat of the game, however, is in the missions. There are cooperative missions called Special Ops, in which 4 players go through a level from start to finish shooting down baddies, and eventually reaching a boss. There's 4 difficulty settings for this mode, starting from Medium, which is piss easy, and ending with an insanely difficult Ultramax. For those of you who prefer to shoot other players, you will not be disappointed. There's Mercenary PvP, in which you play Team Fortress 2 style objective-based matches against another player team. You can play with one friend, but otherwise this is meant to be all about random matchups. For those of you looking to set up teams in advance, you'll be playing Arena, which can be played in 4v4 or 10v10, although I'll honestly tell you I'm not sure if I've ever seen a 10v10 full queue. Ever. There's also one more PvE option for the higher leveled players, and that's a raid. Once every hour the dome's alarms go off and red lights appear everywhere. You then have the option to queue for a raid, which is a 10-man defensive co-op game where everyone must protect a power source from waves of enemies. Finally, there is Alliance vs. Alliance, also known as AVA, which is about a persistent war over territory control, but I will get into that later. There are 4 classes in the game, which might not sound like a whole lot by MMORPG standards, but they do play extremely differently, which means they don't feel very lacking. Also, each class has 2 ways to play, so that's 8 different ways to play Global Agenda. First, there is the Assault, who is all about big guns and heavy armor. They can focus either on taking lots of damage as a tank, or dishing it out with explosives. Then there's the Recon, who can either focus on sniping, or speed and melee damage. Then the Robotics, who can build turrets and support stations, as well as drones. The Medic, finally, who can either focus on healing, obviously, or Poison, where they deal damage over time. Overall, the classes are pretty balanced, although there are some minor issues. The extreme damage caused by Recons is often considered overpowered by players, But despite this, each class has a very well-defined role to play in both PvP and PvE, so the team-oriented gameplay kind of balances out any immediate class imbalances. As with any MMO, you create your character and personalize him or her. The customization is very good. It starts out with only your face, picking the hair and facial structure, but as you level up you unlock new suits and helmet, which have no impact on gameplay, and are purely to personalize your character. This leads to just about everyone looking different, even going so far as recognizing your friends by what they wear and not the name floating on their heads.
Just browsing, eh?
That's not to say that there isn't also stat-based equipment, however. You can get armor that protects you against a specific damage type or gives you extra health, as well as implant mods which you can craft. Weapons and devices also have basic versions and rare and epic versions, which have upgrades in power consumption, cooldown, damage output, that sort of thing. But all of these upgrades are minuscule, and while they might be the deciding factor in an equally skilled one-on-one, they don't make enough of a difference to completely unbalance the game and lead it to just being a grind for gear. Going back to Alliance vs Alliance, the AVA mode was originally the game's main selling point, but has sort of fallen under the radar now. In it, alliances bid on hexes in a Risk-style world map, and attack each other's territory to take control of it. The main draw here is that each battle matters. Victory or defeat does not affect the one match you're in, but affects the war as a whole. This leads to games being a lot more intense, but it also leads to a lot of drama when your alliance loses. There's a lot of new equipment in this mode, special turrets or vehicles which the alliance can create with resources gained from certain hexes. This does lead to more varied gameplay, but it also leads to less balanced individual matches, with a bigger alliance fighting a smaller one, less equipped one. Overall, Global Agenda is a very high-quality MMO third-person shooter, but the problem here is that it's very hard to really know who to suggest this to, as die-hard shooter players might find that it takes too long to kill someone, and all the extra devices and skills might be a little too complex for them, while MMO fans might, complain that there's not nearly enough exploration to do, and the massive part does not come in the form of big, massive battles with thousands of players. It is instead the hex map and AVA and trading. Anyone who likes boat shooters and MMORPGs, and is willing to try something sort of in between, making some minor compromises on either side, should definitely try the free trial of Global Agenda. You'll find that you do get a very wholesome experience that is very intense, very deep, and overall very good fun. But it simply might not be for everyone.